Good morning and welcome to the Science of Mind class. I'm Dr. Petra, and it's one of my favorite things to do in the whole week is to be here with you guys talking about the science of mind. And so we started chapter 18 in the Science of Mind last week, and it is the law of attraction. And of course, the law of attraction, as you know, as you probably know, has gotten super popular. And and we want to take a deeper dive into it. We do a lot of conversation about affirmations and visualizations, and that is a very kind of directive way of using the principles and laws of the universe. We talk about spiritual mind treatment, which is a whole technology that allows us to be very directive in our co-creation. The law of attraction is much more about becoming internally that which we want to experience in our lives. And it's about an internal state, which is why we spent all that time on mental equivalence. Because the law of attraction now is the recognition that we are, in fact, always attracting to us the outpicturing of our consciousness. I found a quote the other day, which I thought was really fabulous, and I'm sorry I can't tell you who the quote was by. It was by a woman, and the quote was, "Gravity is the lust of the cosmos." Isn't that a great quote? Gravity is the lust of the cosmos, right? Because gravity is attracting. That two bodies are attracted together through the force of gravity. Well, the law of attraction is actually somewhat similar. The law of attraction is the recognition that we are constantly either attracting or repelling the life that we want, and that we can pay attention to that. We can participate in that process. There are also some things about the law of attraction that are maybe a little hard to swallow, and so we can talk about that too. So we're on page 295, the first full paragraph. Everyone automatically attracts to themselves just what they are. And we may set it down that wherever we are, however intolerable the situation may be, we are just where we belong. Okay, so we have to unpack that a little bit. The first part of it, the first thing we want to unpack is we are just where we belong. We want to remember that this isn't a statement about something outside of us deciding that we need to experience something, or that we're being punished, or that we are being rewarded, or that there is an idea that somehow God or Spirit has designed an experience for us. This is not the idea that we are just where we belong, right? This is actually a recognition that the universe is constantly seeking balance and harmony. And so a better way of thinking about it, we are just where we belong, is the idea that water seeks its own level. So no matter how many nooks and crannies there are, let's say, where the water is flowing, it'll fill all of that up, whether some are deep and some are shallow or wide or small or whatever, and it will seek its own level, and it will level itself out, right? And so the law of attraction reminds us, as within, so without. And there's a reciprocal and a correspondence between the inner and the outer. So it's not something outside of us saying, well, you belong there because X, Y, and Z. We belong there because it is life reflecting back to us the inner state of our consciousness, which is, of course, what we talked about the whole last chapter on mental equivalence. Now, it's an interesting thought to think about. Well, what about children? What about children? We always get this question. What about children? What about children that are in abusive relationships? Children that, have terrible experiences? How can they possibly have attracted that? And so there's lots of metaphysical ways in which we can decide. We can talk about, maybe that is attracted from a previous life, or it's the outpicturing of things that have happened before. This is something that children bring in with them, right? Whether we're talking about reincarnation or karma or any of those kinds of things. The truth is, science of mind doesn't really address that. And the reason for that is because children are not fully engaged in personal choice. The reality is that if a child is in an abusive situation, that is actually not they didn't attract that, their family attracted that. The parents, the people that are being abusive, that are, that's where the outpicturing and the attraction is taking place. And we don't try to figure out why a child is there. We do, of course, seek to protect the child as best we possibly can, make sure that they are safe and well. The science of mind is very interested in, as we mature and we are able to choose, and we are able to bring all of our consciousness and our executive functions online. This is when this really starts to become a powerful spiritual understanding. Up until a child is 7 years old, they're actually operating in the theta brainwaves, which is the brainwave when we are under hypnosis. And so they're basically receivers. They're simply absorbing absolutely everything around them. That's their job, and that's how their brains work. Over the course of childhood and adolescence, the brain is starting to develop, and more and more of that ability to choose and decide and become actually becomes under our conscious control. And so that's the piece that we're really interested in, especially as adults. What are we going to do with what happened as children? How are we going to hold it? And what kind of an attractive force is that going to be in our lives? So let's set aside that and really focus on who we are today and the life that we're experiencing today. We are just where we belong. I mean, this is the good news and the bad news, right? The bad news is the life that we're experiencing at the moment is in fact an outpicturing of what we've attracted. The good news is if our life is about an outpicturing of what we've attracted, if we change what we're attracting, then our life is going to reflect that change. And this is why in spirituality, in our science of mind, the work is done internally. It's our internal sense of life, of the nature of reality, of our place in it, of who we think we are, who we think other people are, what we think is really happening. And quite frankly, whether we hold ourselves as victims or capable, whether we hold ourselves as merely human or spiritual beings, right? All of these things are part of that mental atmosphere we talked about last week that become the attractive, that becomes the attractor or the repeller of that thing which we want, but we aren't yet that on the inside. Everyone automatically attracts to themselves just what they are. And that we may set it down that wherever we are, however intolerable the situation, we're just where we belong. There's no power in the universe but ourselves that can free us. So that feels like, okay, well, it's, a lot of responsibility and a lot of, like, I did it to myself. But the other side of that coin is, it means nobody's done it to us. Nope. God isn't out there saying you need this lesson. Spirit isn't deciding that you need to grow in a certain way. You aren't being punished through the law of karma. None of those things. Which means that it's all available to us to make a different inner reality, which then allows our outer reality to shift. Do you see? So by taking responsibility for the fact that this intolerable situation may actually be something that I participated in is the very key to our freedom. We have to be willing to start with taking that kind of responsibility. And it's not about fault or blame. Oh, look, it's so bad and I'm so stupid and I can't believe I did this. Or or victimizing ourselves. It's a simple opportunity of recognizing there are laws in the universe. We've been using them unconsciously. We've been on autopilot in certain areas of our life, and all we're doing now is bringing them to consciousness. It's not about fault or blame. It's about awareness and consciousness, and then deciding, choosing how we're going to think and see and feel about ourselves and about life. Someone may help us on the road to realization, but substantially and permanence can come only through the consciousness of our own life and thought. You know, sometimes it's so interesting to me that when we get to the law of attraction and things like that, there can be a false idea that all of this is very simple or easy, and I don't have to work very hard at it, because we're going to get to the bottom of this page and we're going to talk about inaction, how powerful inaction is. But it's not inaction as in doing nothing internally. It's about not trying to figure it out or force it externally. There's a lot of inner work that we actually have to do, which is why we have all of our spiritual practices. It's about disciplining our consciousness. It's about paying attention to what we're paying attention to. It's about setting our sights on the qualities of the one life of spirit, and then recognizing that that's flowing through us. It's about not projecting onto other people. It's about inviting love from ourselves and from others. You see, there's so much inner work that we're doing. We can't just read a book or listen to a talk or go to a weekend workshop and just have an aha and think everything is going to change. We have to do the work in our consciousness. Substantiality and permanence can come only through the consciousness of our own life and thought. And I know that sometimes as we start doing this work or we find that we are aiming this work at a particular area of our life, we can get a little disgruntled, and quite frankly, it can be exhausting. Really? I mean, I have to keep paying attention to this? We do actually. We have to keep paying attention to it, and we have to keep paying attention to it, and we have to keep paying attention to it, because what we're doing is we're rewriting it on the inside. We're rewriting it on the inside. That's what shifts the experience that we're having. And aligning us with the type of life, a peaceful, joy-filled life of contribution and purpose and fulfillment and love, right? That's what we're seeking to experience. And so it's the work in consciousness to unhook all the patterns or beliefs or behaviors or energetic experiences that are actually attracting something different than the kind of life that we hope to have. We must bring ourselves to the place in mind where there is no misfortune, no calamity, no accident, no trouble, no confusion, where there is nothing but plenty, peace, power, life, and truth. We should definitely daily, under our own name, declare the truth about ourselves, realizing that we are a reflection, that we are reflecting our statements into consciousness, and they will be operated upon by consciousness. So we can't be feeding ourselves junk in consciousness any more than we can feed ourselves junk food and think we're going to be healthy. We have to feed ourselves. We have to be in charge of that, right? It's our consciousness, our thought, our life. We have to be in charge of what we're paying attention to, of what we're allowing in our consciousness. We have to be paying attention to what we're focusing on out in the world. Yes, of course, we do actually have to see what's going on, but only enough to know that we want to build a consciousness that is different. And so we start looking for evidence of what's good and just and right and beautiful and peaceful and all the ways things are moving forward, whether it's out in the world or whether it's in our own lives. Do you see? That's the work. That's our work. We're building an internal mental atmosphere, an overarching mental atmosphere, which then becomes the attractive force. We talk about this in the science of mind as building consciousness, right? So we can manifest specific things. Absolutely. We can manifest a particular healing or a particular outcome or a particular acquisition. We can manifest specific things. But for our life as a whole to be more in alignment with spiritual truth and be more in alignment with the kind of life that we want to experience and express, what we're doing is building consciousness. We're building mental equivalent. So we're building a consciousness around prosperity, and we're building a consciousness around health, and we're building a consciousness around our home life and our work life, and we're building a consciousness around our contribution to the world. Do you see? And we move beyond having to manifest lots of specific things into a creating this consciousness, which is a general attractor and is attracting the good to us. That's the internal work. And it's at all levels, right? We have to imagine that it's possible. We have to see the truth in the divine reality. We have to accept that that's actually true about who we really are, despite our childhood traumas and our human limitations. And we have to begin to build an acceptance within ourselves that this is the truth. And of course, goes without saying, or maybe we need to keep reminding ourselves that if this is true for us, this is true for each and every person. And so we want for every single person to know the truth about themselves and to see and experience a life of fulfillment and contribution and plenty and joy in the way that they want to experience it. This is the larger work, and it's so interesting. In the next chapter, in the next section, it says this is called in mysticism the high invocation. The high invocation, right? This is where our mental use of the law moves into a spiritual receiving of truth. And we begin to align our consciousness with the nature of this truth. Not as something we're trying to project, but as something we seek to accept as reality. We hardly even have to think about becoming it. We only have to become it in our awareness, because the truth is we already are it. So is everybody else. But it's that acceptance that we are more than our past, more than our traumas, more than our wounds, more than our false beliefs, more than patterns, more than blah, 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 blah. More than any of those things. For our consciousness to be a different kind of attractor in our lives, we want to expand our acceptance of these truths. And again, not in some egotistic hubris way. How do we know it's not egotistical or hubris? Is we're not putting ourselves over anybody else. We recognize that if this is true for us, this is true for every single solitary person, period. No exception. But we have to start with ourselves. Because when we can really see it in ourselves, then we can really see it in others. And if we can really see it in others, it can help us to really see that in ourselves. So using the law of attraction, despite how it may be talked about in the popular milieu, using the law of attraction is all about our consciousness. It's all about our consciousness and the mental atmosphere with which we are walking around in the world. And it is the That's not quite the, so again, I want to say that's why this chapter is built on the chapter of mental equivalence. Because mental equivalence, we remember we talked about a number of different ways in which we can carve out that internal space, grow that internal consciousness. And now this chapter is reminding us that when we do that, the law of attraction is automatically operating. It's automatically operating. And what it is attracting to us shifts as we shift this internal space. Do this work in consciousness. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to affirm that it's hard, but I recognize and I think we have to admit that it takes effort and discipline and consistency and a willingness to keep at it week after week, month after month, year after year, which is, of course, why we're in community, right? We are in community because we get to walk through this together over time in that long-term shift of our internal sense of who we are and what's really going on in the world. All right, so there you go. This just chocked full. These chapters are just chocked full. So we're going to stop there and see what is happening. We're going to say hello to Ryan and invite you guys to comment and participate. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
Well, good morning, everybody, and good morning to you too, Dr. Petra. Thank you all for joining us this morning. You could be anywhere in the world, but you decided to sit in on your couch and watch us. So we appreciate it.
We love it.
And we want to hear from you. This is an interactive discussion. We love talking to everybody about the science of mind, and so your questions and your comments are welcomed. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. If you're here with us in the Zoom room, you can go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon located down below. Or as always, you can put your comments inside of the chat and we can answer them. If you are watching on Facebook Live and you'd like to join us here in the Zoom room, feel free to hop on the link that is located in the description above. And if you have questions or comments, you can put those in the comments field and we'll do our best to bring those into the room. As always, I'd like to keep things anonymous so that way we can, be a safe container for participation. So with that being said, going actually back originally to your first quote, Petra.
Yeah.
The name of the author, drum roll, is Mary Roach.
Oh, wonderful.
Gravitation is the lust of the cosmos, Mary Roach. And shout out to Bobby, my good pal Bobby, who's out there researching those fun
Yay,
facts
thank
for
you,
us.
Bobby. I know, isn't that a fabulous quote? I love it. Thank you, Mary Roach, for saying that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Bobby.
So, Petra, it does look like I see a hand raised by Jeff.
Great.
So I'm going to go ahead. Jeff, do you want to unmute yourself?
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Dr. Petra. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, but it's all good.
Good.
I'm not on the picture, am I?
No, well, I can't see you, so no, it's just the voice.
All right. A couple things. First of all, I'm so happy to hear you, of all people, say a couple things. One, we have to keep focus on our consciousness. We have to be conscious. We have to focus on our consciousness. And then you say, well, I don't want to say this stuff is hard. My position is it's okay to say it is hard because it's, for me, I can get impatient.
Yes.
And for me to focus on being conscious every day, that's hard work.
It is.
To see is actually one of the most arduous things one can do. I heard that from a spiritual guru who said that the mystics feel that way. Anyhow, but I think I've come a long way in 3 years since I've been coming around, and sometimes I get discouraged, I get impatient, judged that it's about time that some of these things I've been praying for ought to be manifesting by now. And then I look at my garden and I see a lot of brand new sprouts popping up all over the place. And I'm been watching them grow, and I see them mature. I'm watching them mature and I'm seeing them grow. And then I judge that, okay, as a lot of things are manifesting, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. But the ones that are still sprouts, I judge that they're not ready to bear fruit yet, and they need watering, continuing watering. They need continuing consciousness, and they need continuous attention and patience. And so, thank you for saying that. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. It can be hard. Sometimes it's easier than other times. But consciousness for me is good most of the time. But sometimes I have bad days, and sometimes I get frustrated. Like, why isn't this happening yet? And then I think about how much I have to be grateful for. So
beautiful. Jeff, thank you so much. You've said a number of really important things, and I really appreciate you sharing. Right? The first one is that the only reason I don't like to use the word hard is because we tend to associate that with, well, I have to work hard to get ahead. And I think you're right. Sometimes it is hard. And what I mean by hard then is effort. It takes effort. It doesn't have to be suffering. It doesn't have to be struggling. But it does, in fact, take effort. Climbing a mountain is hard. It's hard work. You sweat, and you have to stop and pant, and then you wonder sometimes, why did you even decide to climb this mountain? What were you thinking? And so you're right. I mean, as long as hard doesn't have a negative connotation of suffering, then I think it is important to recognize that this consciousness work takes effort, diligent effort. And then the second thing you said, which I think is really important, is that we are hampered by two things. One, we're hampered by the fact that we keep holding Jesus up as a way shower for us, and he seems to have done, according to the stories, everything instantaneously. And then we live in our instant gratification society, and then we live in our digital world, where if it takes more than 3 seconds, we're like, what the heck is the matter here? Right? And so we become very impatient. And there is this whole other idea in this manifestation process, which is the law of growth. And we have two places where the law of growth is happening. One, internally, we're growing our ability to imagine something different. We're growing our ability to accept something different. We're growing our consciousness, meaning we're expanding it. We're deepening it. We're owning some of these spiritual truths as actually possibly even applying to us, right? All of that is a growth process. It's an internal growth process. And from a neuroscience point of view, right, we're literally rewriting some of the synaptic pathways in our brain, which takes time. It takes time to do that. So there's growth on the inside. And then, as you so beautifully said, in the garden, when things sprout, we don't go out and curse them and say, why don't you have your bean? Why can't I pick a bean from you? And it's a sprout that's this big. We actually are excited. Oh, look, it sprouted. And we do exactly as you said, fertilize it, water it, we take care of it, we do what needs to be done, and at some point it actually grows to flower and to fruit. And that's another outpicturing of the law of growth. And so we can begin, as we are growing our consciousness, we can begin to see little seedlings of that being something different being attracted. And we might actually, most likely, there'll be a whole period of time in which we're attracting out of old consciousness and new consciousness at the same time. And it's flipping back and forth. And some things like, oh, look, there's that little seedling and it's growing. And other times it's like, oh, that's why isn't that gone yet? right? And that's, again, a part of our diligence in our consciousness. How much time are we spending on, oh, there it is, why is that there again? Or, oh, look, that seedling is continuing to grow. It's continuing to grow, right? That is our work. What are we paying attention to? What are we focusing on over and over and over again? Now, this again, we say this regularly. I say this regularly. I think it's hugely important. This does not mean we don't feel our feelings. Of course, we have moments of frustration. Absolutely. We have moments of disappointment. We have real feelings. We have moments of anger. We have moments of depression. They are absolutely real, and there's a reason why we have them. So if it wasn't a part of our nature, we wouldn't have them. The point is to feel the feeling, not tell a big story about it. Ugh, this is awful. It's just, here it is again, and I'm never going to get out of it, right? Oh, okay, now we're just reinforcing the old ideas. What we want to do is feel the feeling, recognize it, go talk to a friend, have a little vent, get some spiritual work done with a practitioner or someone else, and then keep ourselves focused on, but here's a little seedling that's growing. Or even if we don't see the seedling yet, here's the internal space that I'm growing, and by God, I am not going to give up on it. I'm going to stay committed to my inner spiritual space, because I know eventually I'm going to see a seedling. And all of that is actually the work. Everything that we do, all of our spiritual tools are all a part of us doing this exact work. And so we can feel our feelings about it, and then we can remind ourselves, yes, okay, so we're being impatient. I'd love for it to be faster. And I'm going to keep at it and keep at it, because the last thing you said, which was really important, super important, we're so busy looking at what we don't have yet that we forget to look back and see how far we've come. So it's so important. That's a part of what then solidifies the consciousness, solidifies the work that we've been doing, because we can in fact actually see over the last 3 years, oh my gosh, these things have shifted. This inner space has been grown. This is how it is working already in my life. And that gives us confidence, and it gives us the next little push to go, yeah, I can keep going. I can keep doing this work. It's like standing halfway up the mountain, and instead of only looking up at, oh my God, I have so far to go, is to look back and go, wow, look how far I've already come. And actually to enjoy the view from that moment, to actually stop there for a little bit. This is a pretty good view. Might not be the same view as there's going to be when I'm at the top, but yeah, it's a pretty good view, and it's better than being stuck in the valley. These are all really exquisite moments along the path, which is, of course, why we call it a journey. It's not about the destination. It is about the journey. Thanks, Jeff. All right, Ryan, we're going to come back to you.
I thought Journey was a band.
Ha ha ha, it is too.
Just kidding. I wanted to read this beautiful quote that Bobby put in the chat, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeff here to ask his question or comment. The quote goes, "A life truly lived constantly burns away veils of illusion, burns away what is no longer relevant, gradually reveals our essence until, at last, we are strong enough to stand in our naked truth." And that one is by Dr. Marion Woodman.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
it is
really beautiful, Bobby. Thank you so much for putting that out there.
Yes.
That's an absolutely gorgeous quote.
All right, so Jeff, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Oh, hi, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff. Jeff, are you here with us?
I hear somebody.
No, it's me. It's Karen. It's not Jeff.
Oh, hi, Karen. Good morning, Karen.
I was so glad this morning to hear you make the differentiation between manifestation and the deeper growth of consciousness, because I think you're totally right how so much of science of mind gets portrayed as a new car, a new job, a new relationship, and it's really, I think, the deeper work about understanding who we are and why we're where we are that really gives the deeper growth.
Yes.
And to really, it's more deeper, profound changes in life. I mean, that's what I've experienced in my life. It is shifting those away from so many things that don't serve.
Yes.
And then as you adopt these things, your life starts to improve.
Yes.
Without so much focus on a new car.
Yes.
It's just like it is like the color changes, and it's really quite a process. And the deeper spirituality and the understanding that what we see for ourselves is true for all of us.
Yes. Beautiful, beautifully stated, Karen, and I think you're exactly right. And I think that's the sort of downside of the way the law of attraction and some of this positive spirituality and new thought is portrayed, is that it's just about acquisition, manifest stuff, right? And we start there sometimes because, quite frankly, our lives are bleeding, and we do actually need to put on a Band-Aid, whether it's health or relationship or money or things like that. And it also teaches us that there is a law that we can use. But Karen, as you so beautifully pointed out, that's like elementary school. Really, that's elementary school of spirituality. You have to go through it, you have to learn all of that stuff. But eventually we grow into, it's really something so much more amazing going on. And it is that complete shift in consciousness itself, our consciousness, and how that begins to change our lives, not on the outside as much as on the inside. The whole way in which we engage in our life shifts. And then our life begins to conform around us to that inner state of consciousness. So we simply become happier with ourselves. We know more about who we are. We're a lot less stressed. We're able to savor the moment. And what happens? Well, the law of attraction brings us a life that's happier, that has more moments to savor, that has more opportunities to contribute. Because it's simply conforming itself through the law of attraction to this inner work. And as we find ourselves more deeply experiencing our oneness, our life has to conform to that. And all of a sudden, actually we do find ourselves able to feel our oneness with someone we disagree with, or not get so triggered by that family member who we just can't see eye to eye with, or the outer ain't it awful circumstances. We find new ways to hold them and more productive ways to engage with them. And then and our whole life starts to revolve around a different center. Not the center of it's hard or it's victimhood or it's awful or it never works out or, people are always trying to get you or whatever blah, blah, blah stuff, right? That is that old consciousness. As we're shifting that consciousness, do you see our life shifts around us? And so, maybe every once in a while we have a jerk in our life, but we're not attracting 10 of them because we're not that anymore. And then when we do attract something that's outside of that consciousness that we're building, we can see, well, maybe that's their stuff and not ours. All of that changes. And so, yes, this is always the important and challenging shift, right, that we go through as we spiritually mature. And we begin to recognize that it's all about consciousness. And that gives us a beautiful entrance into this last paragraph that I just want to note. At the bottom of page 295, one of the ancient sayings is that to the person who can perfectly practice inaction, all things are possible. It sounds like a contradiction until one penetrates its inner meaning. For it is only when one completely practices inaction that he arrives at the point of the true actor. For then we realize that the act and the actor are one and the same. Do you see, the inaction, the place of inaction is the trusting of consciousness. And as Jeff earlier pointed out, that is freaking work. So it's not like we're not doing anything. We are absolutely engaged with our work. But we're not trying to manipulate the conditions. We're not just about manifesting this and that and work and fix and do this and try to figure all of that stuff out. And then we recognize that as we're doing that work in consciousness, the act and the actor and the act are one. Why? Because we're using the law. The law of attraction is simply one of the ways in which the law of cause and effect operates. And so when we do that internal work in consciousness, the outer world simply conforms to that. And we attract out of the, 11 million bits of information that we are being bombarded with at any one given second. We are pulling out of that and attracting out of that which conforms to the consciousness that we have. We realize that the act and the actor are one and the same, that cause and effect are the same, which is simply a different way of saying, know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, right? And Karen, as you so beautifully said, this is the deeper work. And what is the truth that we know? It's not like, oh, this is my truth. It's not like a psychological truth. It's spiritual truth. That there is a power and a presence, and it's moving as us in the world, and that we get to make choices, and that it's all about how we think and believe, and the consciousness that we build that is the contributing factor to the life that we have, that we're growing, that we're experiencing. And and to kind of weave Jeff and Karen, your guys' comments together, right? How many spiritual teachers have reminded us we're not really going anywhere. It's not about a destination. It's not about like hitting the peak of the mountain. It's not about getting all the toys. It's not about my life is perfect now. I have everything in its place. Everything is perfect. Okay, don't anybody move. Because life is constantly changing. This expression, this physical creation is constantly changing and moving and shifting. And it's about the growing journey that we're on, the ever unfolding expansion of our own nature, of our consciousness, of our engagement with life. It's all about this unfolding, constantly growing process. And I think we have become seduced into the idea that there's like, well, when I get that, then I'm going to be happy. And when I have that, then I'm going to be okay. And when I've manifested that, then everything will be all right. And as if, there's an end point, and then we're going to sit and twiddle our thumbs. What are we going to do then? I'm good, I'm satisfied, I'm done. Well, unless we're turning pink and transcending, we're not done. We have so much more life. And it's not just that we're not done learning and growing, that there's more stuff to heal. It's that we're not done being all that we can be, expressing all that we have the opportunity or the possibility to express. In the science of mind, we recognize that life is forever and ever unfolding and expanding in an upward spiral of consciousness. And whatever we're able to do in this lifetime, right, it continues right on unfolding and expanding in what happens after this. And so part of it is the willingness or the ability to embrace the journey, and not to be disappointed that every time we reach a peak or a moment of like, ooh, this is all good, that there isn't another peak to climb, because there's always more to expand and to grow into. So great, really appreciate your guys' comments and input on all of this. It's so important. And we can really make these laws and this way of thinking about it very simplistic, which is an okay place to start. Really, it's an okay place to start, and the truth is most of us have started there. But we want to mature. We want to mature our spirituality. We want to mature our understanding and our embodiment of truth. When we embody these truths, they set us free. And our lives are just being attracted to us out of that place of knowing. So much fun to explore these things together, and thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. We're going to continue on through the law of attraction. We have a fabulous Sunday celebration coming up in 30 minutes, and we do also have our music director candidate. He'll also be auditioning, and you'll have an opportunity to give feedback, so please do join us. And we look forward to seeing you online whenever we see you. In the meantime, have a beautiful, beautiful and blessed day. Bye for now.